Hello everyone, it's Bo from Growthwise, and today we're going to go through new invoicing. If you recall, we've actually done a video on this before. It was part 1. We're doing part 2 now because next week new invoicing becomes the default in Xero. So we thought we should rehash some of the little bits and pieces that we did in the last video, but also probably in this one focus more on the things that are specific to new invoicing. So to get started, obviously let's go to the invoicing section in Xero. So business and then invoices. And the page that we go on after we click on new invoice, this is going to be the default experience. Now you will be able to switch back to classic invoicing if you choose with this button here that says switch back to classic invoicing, but that will disappear in November. So this is going to be the default going forward, and we suggest you try and get used to using this. Not that it's really too different, it does look a little bit different, but the functionality is very much the same. So let's talk through some of the new features. One of the great things now is as soon as you've actually added a contact in, it will save the invoice. So you can see in this top left here, we're actually saving that invoice, and now we're at the point where it's saved. So there's no longer the necessity to have to click this save and close button. As soon as you've got a customer in there, it's good to go. So that's obviously quite a good thing. Now, some of the other bits and pieces that have changed, if you remember last time in the last video, we talked through, you can now show and hide fields. So if we click on this button, you can see this is the different fields that are available. So if you don't use, for example, the tracking categories, we're in the demo account now, so it's region and project. We can get rid of those if we're no longer using them. So we can really just focus on the things that we do need to enter in Xero. Now, one of the things that was not available in new invoicing in the early days was a discount. So we're going to turn that on now and then click on save, and you can see now we've actually got this discount column available. Now, one of the changes that's happened with this is if we actually add in a price, let's say it's $125, we can discount either a dollar value by just typing the dollar value. So tax inclusive makes it easier. So you can see here, we've just discounted by $25, but you can also use the old method of percentage as well. So if you just put a % sign in there, you can now actually still use the same discount method as what you did previously by just putting that % at the end there. Or if you just want to do a dollar value, just remove it and you'll just get a straight dollar value for the discounts. So that's a pretty simple but decent sort of add that they've actually added in here now. Rightio. So at this point, what we're going to do is approve this invoice. We're not going to email it. We're just going to say approve. Oh, got to add a due date. So you will get messages like this if you haven't added something in. Now, this is a good point as well. You can still use the calculator function. So if you say plus 14, you'll get plus 14 days. So that's the same functionality as what we used to have in old invoicing as well, classic invoicing as they like to call it. So if we now approve this, at this point in time, we're ready to actually send it out. And if we click on email, we'll actually get a better style of preview screen. So yes, it does take up the whole screen, but you can actually see on the right hand side what the customer is going to expect to pay. There is also a placeholder now for, I believe, due date that never used to be in the old system. So that's pretty good to have that in there as well now. You can default these in your settings in Xero as well. So if you want to actually change this information here, you can do it at the settings part of Xero. So we're not going to send this at all. I'm just going to close out of this. It's just the part that I wanted to show. One thing that was heavily criticized when Xero actually released this feature was when you did a copy. So if you said copy to draft invoice, this would not pre-fill. So you can see at the moment when you copy it now, it's going to default to suggesting the actual invoice you're already on. So that's quite useful if you're trying to do a bunch of different invoices for a customer where things are just slightly got to change. So if you do job numbers or something like that, that has to just change a little bit on each invoice. So you do need to actually have a brand new one each time. When you go to copy, it's actually going to suggest that customer. Now, if you don't want to use that customer, you can simply click the X button. That will then get rid of that. And when you go to copy, it's just going to be a blank slate, but still have the same description and everything that you had on the previous invoice. All right, the next thing that I want to go through is the ability to invoice to a contact group. So again, when new invoicing was first released, this didn't exist. So thanks to the Xero team for actually listening and making sure that we've added in the different bits and pieces that people use. If we go to contacts and then all contacts, this is the start of the workflow for actually making sure you can invoice a contact group. Then click on customers. Obviously, if you haven't added your customers in here, you can click on new contact in the top right and actually add your customer details in. Now, what we're going to do, I'm going to tick a few people here, and we're going to say add to group, and we're going to say new group, monthly invoices, and then we're going to go to create. Now be careful when you're at this point, you do need to still click on add. That will then add the customers that we've selected into that particular group. So if you want to check it just to make sure it worked, click on groups and then monthly invoices, which is the group that we've just added. And then you can see the customers that we've added before. So at this point, we're ready to do the actual group invoice. We go into business and then invoices. You can say new invoice, just a little downward arrow next to it. And then you can see if we click on monthly invoices, that's going to then spawn that invoice set for the 3 customers that we added in earlier. Now, again, we've got to set the due date. So let's make sure we add that in. Let's say monthly invoicing. So let's say it's web hosting, or this is generally good if it's for things that change in price each month. So for things like, say if it's like Amazon Web Services, if you unbuild that to someone and obviously the cost fluctuates each month, you would then have to do this grouped invoice, as opposed to doing something like a repeating invoice where the price doesn't really change. So let's just say that it's $100 for the month. We've added everything in here now, and you'll see what will happen is when we click on create the draft invoices, we're going to get 3 draft invoices. So if we do this, we can now see that the 3 ones that we just added are just here, and then we can approve, email, do whatever we need to do with those. So that's another useful feature that's been added in. Like I said before, if it's something where the price doesn't change month to month, instead you can do a repeating invoice. The repeating invoice at the moment still looks like the old system, but will still work with new invoicing as well. The next one that I wanted to show is something that's quite simple, but I think for people where they're doing a lot of different invoices will probably be useful. So if we actually look at the moment in the new invoicing screen, in the Chrome tab up the top, we can actually see the invoice number. Something very simple, but if I go across to here, you'll see in old invoicing or classic invoicing, there was no ability to do that. So that's something that can be quite useful. If you've got a lot of different invoices that you need to have open for whatever reason, you'll be able to see in the tab itself what the actual invoice numbers are. All right, moving along. The next thing that's been added into new invoicing that did not exist in classic invoicing is actually being able to set a credit limit for a customer. So if we jump into contacts at the moment, let's do it this way so you can see the whole flow. I'm going to find a customer. So Marine Systems, we're going to jump into them. And if we now go to edit, the section that we want to go to is under sales defaults. So you can see here, there's this credit limit function that you can add in. So there's 2 options with this. So the first one is, which is going to be default, where it won't block a new invoice. So you can just say that the credit limit for this customer is $4,000, or I'm going to make it higher just so we can demonstrate it. So let's say it's $10,000. We're not going to block new invoices when the credit limit's reached. We're just going to save that. So now Xero knows that for Marine Systems, the actual credit limit is $10,000, and it'll also give you this explanation here that says the credit limit and the credit available. So we can see at the moment we've got a credit limit of around of 10,000, but we've got 5,000. We can still bill them, and we're still going to allow invoices. So what we can do, if we go into invoices now, go to new invoice. Obviously, we need to pick Marine Systems as the customer. Same thing, set a due date. But what we're going to do here is we're going to exceed that credit limit. So you can see as soon as we do that, we get this message at the top. You've passed the credit limit for Marine Systems with this invoice. They owe you $11,000, which is $1,000 over the limit. Quite useful if you've got team members that are doing invoicing where they may not be aware of that, or they may not be able to see certain things in Xero. So you can actually see when people are over limit or not, and know who you should chase ahead of other people. Now, with this as well, you'll notice that the approve button is still available. So if you recall from earlier, when we set this function up, we said that we're not going to block the ability to send new invoices. We'll just give this warning. Now, if we jump back into the contact section again, and then go to Marine Systems again as the customer, we're going to change it this time and say, so edit, sales defaults, and then jump down to here, tick this box that says block new invoices when credit limit is reached, go to save and closed, click on invoices, new invoices, same function that we've been doing all throughout this video. Marine Systems, set a due date, and we're going to add a $15,000 invoice, so we're going to well exceed what their credit limit available is. and you can see now Marine Systems is over their credit limit, but now cannot actually approve the invoice. So this can be a useful function if you do want to set those hard limits where you don't actually have the ability to invoice someone once they've exceeded a credit limit. So that's something that is exclusive to new invoicing in Xero. So we suggest that you get stuck into using that, especially if you've got people that, or customers where you do need to be worried about how much they actually owe you overall in total. Hopefully not, but it is a good system to actually have in place. Alrighty, moving along, now we're up to doing packing slips. So we did cover this a little bit in the last video, but I just thought I should run through it again. In new invoicing, you now have the ability to set delivery addresses. So the easiest way to do that is you can do it whether the invoice is in draft or even after the fact. Click on the contact and you can go to edit, and you can see now we can actually put in here a billing address and a delivery address. So let's just say so you can see now we've got a billing address and we've got a delivery address. If I click on save here, we've now got both of those things in. Now what we can do, if we go to print, you can see we've now got the ability to select a packing slip. So when we do this, what's good about it is it's only going to give actual data about the services or the quantity of items. It doesn't actually give you anything about pricing. So that's something that had been heavily requested as well via Xero for businesses that do picking and packing, or they just have something where they want to give, say, a delivery driver a sheet to say, well, here's the things that are being delivered. Can you get it signed off on? Or here's the things that you actually need to deliver these particular addresses. So you can actually see as well, it's actually got the deliver to address and the bill to address on this packing slip as well. So that's another really simple but nice feature that's been added in. Moving along now, as we're getting closer to the end of this video, as we've nearly covered off most of the new things that are actually coming in new invoicing that weren't in Classic. This one was in Classic invoicing, but they've now improved it for new invoicing to make it a little bit more readable. If you click on history and notes now, anyone that's been using new invoicing for a while would realize that this has now been improved to give you a lot better data than what you had previously. For example, in the original versions of new invoicing, when you sent an invoice, you wouldn't get this. You'd just say sent by invoicing.xero.com, which is obviously not too useful for knowing where the invoice was actually sent to. But as you can see now, we've actually got the email address of where the invoice was actually sent, and we've got a lot of history about who did what and what happened with the invoice along the way. So that's quite a good extra thing that's now been added in. Obviously that was already in Classic, but Xero have now modernized it and made it, very much feature parity to what was available in Classic as well. Okay, so this is just a last little fun one. Anyone that's been using Xero for quite a long time would be aware that there was a little hack in the invoicing system for a bit of fun where you could spawn a unicorn. Now, initially this wasn't in here, but if we check it now, if you type in I want a unicorn with an exclamation mark and then press tab, you'll get this majestic unicorn that'll go across your screen. And I have to say that the new one looks a lot better than the old one. The old one was quite dated, so that's just a little bit of fun that you can do, something to impress your friends with if they've used Xero before. Well, that was a little bit of fun. I hope you've all enjoyed this video so far. The last thing that I wanted to actually show everyone is that Xero does have a page that you can go to that just says Xero New Invoicing Releases that will actually outline why they're changing it, what's coming. But also, if you actually look, you've got the ability to see, I believe it's under, let's have a look. So this feature here, features released in new invoicing, will actually outline all of the things that have been added over time. Like I said, there's the things that we've been through today are specific to new invoicing, and the way that I've been able to actually show you and know about those is this table down the bottom. So all of the things that we went through today are basically the top section here, where it says Classic invoicing was not available, other than the US part because we're not in the US, but everything else is the things that we've gone through when we did the video today. So I hope it's been helpful. If it has, please like, comment, and subscribe. That really helps our YouTube channel, and we hope to do more of these videos. If there's anything that you'd like us to do or do a demo of, just reach out and let us know, and we'll do a video so we can help everyone. Thanks.